Hey everybody. So it's getting later on in the day, and I'm just sitting in my Eberhard signature series. Love this saddle, by the way, but I'm sitting in it, kind of reflecting on the hunt and reflecting on rattling, calling. This is opening weekend of muzzleloader here in Tennessee, so it's early November. I had a successful rattling sequence earlier. It was just does and a small buck, but still successful. So I want to address a few things and give some tips and pointers for rattling in eastern states, especially in the southeast, because like I said, we're in Middle Tennessee, but we're southern Middle Tennessee. We're right on the Alabama line. I used to not rattle. Growing up, I never rattled. I hunted a bedding area probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I saw antlers, and a few minutes later, I saw some more antlers come out of the same bedroom, basically. And I couldn't see the body of the deer, but I could see their antlers. And they worked to a small field that's very secluded, not seen from a road, anything like that. And I just heard them fight a little bit. So the first sequence they did was 15, 20 seconds long. They were still in their bachelor groups. They weren't really fighting. They were just playing, basically. That's what I guess establishing a little dominance. I don't know. But I really paid attention. And what really struck me was, while these deer were doing this, they were calling more deer out of the thicket. A lot of does and another small buck. Almost like, hey, somebody's fighting, let's go watch it. After that hunt, I decided, hey, I'm going to try this. And I watched everything, read everything I could about rattling. And the majority of articles and everything is Midwest rattling. And to me, they're two different things. I tried it here with basically zero results. So I got to thinking about it. I'm like, let me try what those deer, what I actually heard from real deer, from the locations that I'm hunting at. So I stopped burning them as hard and started having a little success. Not a ton, but enough to keep me interested. When I started having a ton of success was when I started realizing when and where to rattle. So here are my factors for rattling in a deer. Number one is time of year. During bow season, which is, the last bit of September here and all of October, I do what I call tickling of the antlers. And I'll demonstrate all these at the end of the video here. But so my tickling sequence, I'm not crashing them together. I'm just putting them together and just bumping the tines. It makes very little noise. You would think a deer would never hear you, but amazingly it works really well. One key to that is, if it's a windy day, it doesn't work as good, of course, because they can't hear as far. And you can try to get more aggressive with it, and I've had mixed results there. So most of the time, during that time of the year, if it's windy, I just don't rattle. I just hunt. So my bow season rattling sequence, like I said, is going to be just tickling the antlers. And here's the key. You have to be close to bedding. I'm talking no more than 150 to 200 yards to where the deer are bedded. And when it gets to that hour before dark time frame, I like to tickle the antlers, wait 30 minutes. If I haven't called anything in, then I'll try one more, maybe 15 to 20 minutes before dark. That brings me to the time of year that we're in right now, which is pre-rut here in Tennessee. Same thing. Gotta be close to bedding, and that's the most important thing, in my opinion. If you're not close to bedding, you're not going to rattle anything in. If you let these deer come in, bed down, if you haven't seen anything, but you're pretty positive deer in that bedding area, try the antlers 2 or 3 hours after daylight. I never rattle anymore, like right off the bat. I used to, and I've called in a few deer that way, not that many. The biggest thing is, on a calm morning, I like to wait until the day winds pick up before I rattle. Because it seems like on real calm mornings, our deer here will come and bed down in the thicket or on a point, wherever they bed at. They'll do that, and then maybe in that 2 to 3 hour after daylight time frame, it's almost like they might get up and feed. I'm not real sure, but it's like if you do a rattling sequence right off the bat, it normally doesn't matter. Maybe they're not back in the bed yet. I'm not sure, but if you do it 2 or 3 hours later, almost always calling a deer here. But my rattling sequence is a lot different this time of year. This is when I get more aggressive. I smash the horns together and then just turn your wrist. Smash them, turn your wrist. I pull them apart and I rake the tree. The tree that I'm sitting on, or if I'm lucky, I like to have a real small diameter tree next to me with limbs coming off. I'll smack them as hard as I can, try to break the limbs off. That sounds like a deer fighting. Most of the mature deer that I've rattled in have also been in this last 2 weeks of October, first 2 weeks of November time frame. And like I said, this is for southern Middle Tennessee. Once you start doing this, you'll figure out the nuances on the places that you hunt. If you're hunting public land, just try it different times. I don't recommend right off the bat in the morning time. Like I said, if it's morning, I'm waiting until 9 o'clock to rattle. If it's evening, I'm waiting until almost prime time to rattle. That's just when I've had the look. I don't necessarily want to rattle then. That's just when it works. I guess my tips boiled down to it are hunt as close as you can to bedding, and let the morning day winds pick up before you start rattling. And once you do a rattling sequence, don't expect a deer to come running into you. That happens every now and then, but not all the time. I mean, I think it's happened to me maybe 3 or 4 times. Most of the time it's, 5 to 20 minutes after. Okay, so here's my rattling antlers. You can tell. It's about 100-inch deer. I don't know, maybe a little less than that. But it's got a little mass to it, and I think that's a little important because I like to hit the trees and all that, so I don't want to break my tines. But I'm going to demonstrate what I call tickling antlers together, and this is my bow season sequence that I run up until about the 1st of November. Maybe the last week of October sometimes, depending on how much sign's being put down. I might go to what I call my number 2 sequence, which is more aggressive. But here's my tickling sequence. So like I said, I don't crash them. Just get them together and basically tickle the antlers together. So here's what this sequence would look like. So, once again, obviously that's not very loud, but number one, when you're doing it, you're going to think, no deer can hear this. It's not true. They absolutely can, and they can from a long ways off, which is shocking. The key element here is, though, it can't be windy like it is right now. The more calm it is, the better it works, and I only use that technique in the evenings because that's basically the only time I bow hunt. So, try that. Get somewhere close to a thicket where you think bucks are bedding, or deer in general. If you just want to shoot a deer, this will call in a lot of does. But get close to a thicket, get down into the thicket, and try that rattling sequence about an hour before dark. You're probably going to call in a deer. Okay, so once November rolls around, the weather gets cooler, leaves start falling really well. Bucks are laying down a lot of sun. This is the pre-rut stage here in Tennessee, or southern middle Tennessee. That's when I do my number 2 sequence, the more aggressive sequence. And that goes something like this. Rub the tree. If you have little trees around, smack them. If you're on the ground, kick your feet. Make as much noise as possible. Now, this is not a burn technique like they use in Texas. They're hitting as hard as they can for a minute, 2 minutes. I don't do that. I don't hit as hard as I can. I just make a lot of noise. This technique works for me the most in that 9 to 11 time frame. And like I said, I use this one during November. Give these a try. Play with them on your place. Play with them on the public land you hunt. I guarantee you, if you try a few different techniques with different time frames, you're going to figure out what works. But rattling antlers absolutely work in the eastern and southeastern states. I can promise you that. And it's a lot of fun once you figure it out. Anyway, we are the Hunting SOBs. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. Give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to do a few more of our tips and tricks on what we do, or what has worked for us in killing mature bucks. And this is absolutely one of them.